A for apparition. Apparition is an older word for ghost, popular during the Victorian era. Apparitions are usually silent and, unlike poltergeists, don't tend to interfere beyond creating a sense of unease and fear. B is for Belgrave Hall. In 1998, the 18th century hall came to global prominence when two ghostly figures were captured on CCTV. Some believe they were the spirits of the two Ellis sisters who lived in the hall in the 1840s and 1850s. Others have suggested that it was just a leaf or a bug. I'll let you be the judge. C is for the Cock Lane ghost. Don't laugh. In 1762, William Kent was accused of murdering his wife by her own ghost, Scratching Fanny. Don't laugh. Scratching Fanny would communicate through a child medium and condemned her husband. But it was discovered to be a ruse by a former landlord of the Kents who was out for revenge after Kent had taken him to court over a debt. D is for Helen Duncan. Helen Duncan was a medium from Scotland. In the 1940s, she was arrested and charged under the 1735 Witchcraft Act, many believing her psychic powers were a risk to wartime security. The truth is less exciting. The Witchcraft Act of 1735 was an anti-fraud act and had nothing to do with actual witchcraft. She was exposed during a séance when someone turned on the light to see her pretending to be a ghost. E is for EVP. EVP, or electronic voice phenomenon, is the term given to the recorded spirit voices. Usually a ghost hunter will set up a dictaphone, or more commonly today their mobile, and ask questions to the ether. Upon playing back the recording, they will frequently hear ghostly voices responding to those questions. F is for the Fox sisters. Maggie, Kate and Lee Fox were the originators of modern spiritualism. In 1848, Kate and Maggie began communicating with a murdered man in their home in western New York. Soon, older sister Lee joined them in seances, which began as a series of knocks apparently created by ghosts. In 1888, Maggie and Kate confessed the whole thing had been a fraud. G is for ghost. Despite everyone thinking they know what a ghost is, there isn't actually a universally agreed upon definition. Ghosts can include apparitions of the still living, non-human animals, and even inanimate objects. Any definition of ghost either doesn't go far enough, thus missing out important things that we call ghosts, or it goes too far and includes things we wouldn't call a ghost. H is for haunting. Haunting is the word we generally use to describe the presence of a ghost. This can be a physical location or even a person. For instance, a ghost following a person from house to house would be haunting the person. Though usually we use haunting to refer to a place, many religions have procedures in place themselves for removing ghosts from haunted locations. I is for investigators. Most modern investigators are identifiable due to their night vision cameras, recording devices, and reacting to the slightest sound as if their entire lineage was under threat.
Given into it, he'd went.
But the more traditional investigators, such as Harry Price, took a slower, more methodical approach. And despite being a skeptic, Harry Houdini was also an investigator. An investigator doesn't necessarily have to, indeed probably shouldn't, only look for evidence to support the existence of ghosts. J is for Johnny One Arm. In 1688 in Edinburgh, a man named John Cheesley shot a judge who had sided with Cheesley's wife in a divorce case. Before execution, Cheesley had the hand that pulled the trigger cut off and tied around his neck. After the sentence was carried out, his body vanished, and for centuries a ghostly, shuffling presence was heard in the closes of Edinburgh, where Cheesley's crime was committed. These hauntings ended when in the 1960s his body was finally found buried on the outskirts of the city, likely placed there by family. K is for the Kersler Unit. The Kersler Unit in Edinburgh researches and investigates the possible existence of psi. Psi is believed to be the phenomenon behind paranormal experiences. Founded in 1985 by Bob Morris using money bequeathed by journalist Arthur Koestler, the unit has been involved in investigations into various incidents. The unit is currently led by Professor Caroline Watt. L is for levitation. Levitation can be both a voluntary and involuntary occurrence. Many tales of hauntings involve the entity itself lifting items or even people and moving them about against their will. In other scenarios, it is the medium using or calling upon spirits that causes items or themselves to levitate. The most famous psychic levitator was Daniel Hume, who would float out of windows. Another famous levitator was Welsh medium Colin Evans, who you can see in this picture, using the supernatural power of jumping. M is for William Mumler. William Mumler was a photographer from the United States who, by accident, discovered he was able to capture spirits on his photographs. This led to a very lucrative career in photographing people with their dead loved ones. He was charged with fraud, though this didn't do much to derail him. No one knows exactly how he did it, but it's believed he used a double exposure method. His most famous photograph featured Mary Todd Lincoln with the ghost of her husband, Abraham. N is for night marchers. On certain nights of the year, those honouring certain gods, these ancient Hawaiian warriors rise from their graves or the ocean and march into the city, their feet never touching the ground. They march after dark until sunrise, beating drums and blowing conch shells to signal their arrival. Any mortal that looks upon the night marchers will die a horrific death. O is for Ouija board. The Ouija board is actually a brand name, like Hoover, for a type of occult device used for channeling spirits. The talking board contains letters and numbers. In 1891, Elijah Bond patented the Ouija board we know and the planchette device that was used to help guide the sitters to the letters. Initially marketed as a toy, it became more popular during and after the First World War. There is debate over what Ouija actually means, with the later owner of the rights, William Fuld, saying it was simply yes in French and German. But Bond suggested it came from an earlier session on the board conducted by his medium sister, where the word Ouija came through, apparently meaning good luck. P is for poltergeist, from the German meaning noisy ghost or noisy spirit. This particular type of ghost can be the disembodied spirit of a once living person, or it can be the manifestation of energy or energies. Usually violent, dangerous, and intent on causing havoc, a poltergeist is for many the most feared type of ghost encounter. Popularised by the Steven Spielberg produced and rumours suggest mostly directed 1982 movie Poltergeist. Q is for Queens of the Tower. The Tudors are famous for many things, and killing is definitely one of them. King Henry VIII had his second wife, Anne Boleyn, executed for treason. Since then, her headless ghost carrying her decapitated head in her arms has been seen stalking the corridors of the Tower of London. Another ghostly monarch at that tower is that of Jane Grey, who ruled for just 9 days before Henry's daughter Mary did away with her and took the throne. R is for Roman Ghosts of York. In 1953, Harry Martindale was a plumber fixing pipes below Treasurer's house in York, England. As he did so, he was alarmed to see a garrison of Roman soldiers march through the room, cut off at their knees, as if walking on the original ground level from centuries earlier, carrying round shields and the wrong-coloured tunics. Several years later, excavations found evidence of round shields and those wrong-coloured tunics, matching Martindale's description. S is for seance, from the French for session, from an older French word meaning sit. A seance is not defined in any hard and firm way. Now, we tend to think of them as a group of people sat around a table, holding hands in the dark, conjuring spirits. But seances can take many forms and be performed in many different ways. All that's required is at least one person, usually, but not necessarily sat, in an attempt to communicate with the dead. The form this takes varies greatly. T is for Tantallon Castle. In 2009, Professor Richard Wiseman set out to discover the world's most convincing ghost photograph. Thousands were submitted and voted on before a picture of an entity at a window in Scotland's Tantallon Castle won. Taken by Chris Aitchison on a visit, the spooky entity has been examined and no camera trickery nor costume staff was identified as the cause. Investigators have suggested everything from the spirit of a former lady of the castle to a witch or just a normal person caught at a weird angle. U is for underground vaults. In 1785, the South Bridge was built in Edinburgh. Beneath it was created a labyrinth of vaults and streets, which developed a reputation over the centuries as being haunted. Believed to be one of the most haunted places in the world, these vaults, specifically these vaults I'm filming in now, boast poltergeists, shadow figures, ghost children, cursed stone circles, and the occasional performance from spooky magicians. People have frequently fainted in the vaults and left with mysterious scars and scratches over their body. V is for Vanishing Hitchhiker. The Vanishing Hitchhiker legends go back decades and usually involve a motorist at night on a dark road picking up a hitchhiker who later vanishes from their car. Variations include the hitchhiker being the ghost of someone killed on that stretch of road who vanishes as soon as they reach the spot where they died, ghosts who vanish after they drive past their burial site, and ghosts that appear to give a warning to the driver, saving their life. In almost all cases, the hitchhiker is benevolent. W is for the White Lady. The White Lady ghost is a commonly experienced paranormal phenomenon. Often associated with a woman who died in tragedy, often by her own hand, the White Lady is seen in other buildings and elegant mansions. She is sometimes interactive and oftentimes simply replaying the moment of her death over and over. Her tale is usually sad, and there is commonly an element of unrequited love or betrayal. She appears frequently in Victorian literature as a primary ghost. X is for Xenophon, a rather obscure one. Seriously, finding anything for X was extremely difficult. In 1945, Lieutenant Xenophon Eugenides, awesome name, was flying his plane over Pumlummon Mountain in Wales. The plane crashed, killing Xenophon. To this day, motorists have reported seeing and hearing the World War II bomber flying low overhead along the roads of that region. Xenophon continues to pilot his craft to this day, hoping to return home. Maybe the fact Xenophon's plane wreckage remains in the mountains to this day is the reason for him sticking around. Y is for Young Teaser. No, not the name of a modern rapper you haven't heard of because you haven't listened to chart music since Girls Aloud broke up. The Young Teaser was a schooner manned by privateers which sailed the seas off the east coast of the Americas in the early 1800s. During the War of 1812, American ships such as Young Teaser would attack and capture British merchant vessels. The Teaser was chased and trapped by British warships in 1813. Unable to escape, the British, a member of the crew of the Young Teaser, disappeared below decks, and moments later a massive explosion destroyed the ship. To this day, people claim to see the floating remains of the vessel sailing off the coast of Nova Scotia. The Teaser Light is one of Canada's best-known ghost ship stories. Z is for Zubarini. In Lithuanian mythology, the Zubarini is a particularly unsettling and terrifying entity. There are a number of different interpretations, but the general story is that these creatures are evil spirits that dwell in the forests. They take on the form of skeletons, but not just regular skeletons, glowing phosphorus skeletons that some report having bright candles embedded in their chests. Beware these entities, for though they may light your way, I don't think you want to go with them. Thank you for watching the A to Z of Ghosts. What would you include on your list?